How's everybody doing? Today's video is going to be a quick explanation of what the difference is between reverb and delay. Both of these effects are things that are space fillers and will create more of a filled out sort of lush sound to a recording or a performance of any sort of guitar. This does apply to like vocal mixing and stuff like that, but I'm a guitarist, so I'm explaining how these effects work on guitar for the sake of this video. Reverb, I've done a video already explaining why you need reverb to fill the space. If you don't have reverb, your sound, basically the note will end as soon as you're done playing it, and it leaves a lot of space. You can have like an effect where you play something and as soon as you stop, it almost feels like a vacuum to your ears because there's nothing else still ringing. And I personally think that reverb is very nice to use in most of my guitar recordings because it creates more of a luscious sort of atmosphere and fills the space better on the lead track. I even use reverb on rhythm tracks, lead tracks, whatever I think makes it sound more massive and more filled out. And I'm just a big fan of reverb, but also delay has its place in my opinion as well. And so today's video I'm going to explain what is the difference between reverb and delay, because they both achieve similar goals as far as filling out the space, but they do it a little bit differently. So reverb is basically as if you were playing inside of a large room and you're hearing a saturated sort of a continuation of the sound. So picture you're playing in a large room, or you have a spring reverb or something like that, and you play a note, you stop playing, but the note is still reverberating back to you. And it is a bit of an echo effect, but it happens typically much more immediately than delay does. So hence I guess the term delay. I never really thought about it that way. But a reverb is like an immediate echo. So for the sake of comparison, I'm going to throw my amp on here real quick. This is my guitar signal dry with no effect on. You'll notice that as soon as I stop playing, there's nothing else. I mean, there's the echo of this room, but that's about it. It's very dry. If I were to play a solo like this, it does have a certain vibe to it, but it's super dry. This is with reverb added. You hear how it's sort of filling the space and echoing and continuing on, but it happens immediately. You can almost take reverb for granted because, especially in pop music or any sort of vocal music, almost every vocal track that you're ever going to hear has some amount of reverb on it. So it makes it sound natural, like you're in a room. There's even, as I'm talking here, my voice is just going straight to camera, but you can hear the echo in the room like a little bit, so it creates more of a natural sound. I've already discussed that in my video, why you need reverb. But you can see the difference. Here's with no reverb, with reverb. So That's what reverb is. It's like an immediate reverberation from the note that you're playing. It does a great job to fill space, and I'm a big fan. Now, delay is a bit different. So delay is, just as the name implies, a delayed echo. So reverb is an immediate echo, delay is a delayed echo. So picture reverb as you're in like a big concert hall and the sound is coming it's not only coming off the back wall to you, which would be more like a delay, but it's coming off of every surface in the room and it floods back to you pretty quick. Whereas delay is like you're playing outside and there's only one big wall like a quarter mile away from you, and you play something and it's like it comes back to you later. So here's my signal again with no effect. And here's with a delay. So you can hear how a delay, in fact, I put this mix a little high for the sake of this, but a delay is a delayed echo back. That's pretty much the difference. So it does have the same effect as far as filling up the space, filling up the sound space, and it makes your sound bigger when you're recording and performing, but there's a delay, as the name implies, in between the echo and the original note. So usually you can adjust that depending on the song. You know, there's certain tricks you can use to sort of time your playing with your delay, or time your delay to your playing, whichever way you want to look at it. Or you can just use it to create this big booming echoing back sound as if you're playing outside and your sound is coming back to you echoing off of a mountain, basically. It just makes it sound more massive, the same way that reverb does. So here's some. There you go. It may not be that obvious when you're in the midst of it, but when you stop playing and you hear it in space, you can see how that echo that's sort of keeping the same notes in that key, repeating over your notes, fills the space, although it's in a much more like segmented style than just a reverb by itself. And if you keep it especially timed in the same time frame as your delay is set, then you don't notice it as much as an echo. Like kind of how that section that I just played. You can use it similar to how I like to use a reverb, although if I'm going to use it out of time, I typically just use a reverb. That's just my own preference. But if you use it in time, you can get some pretty cool effects, such as like the Big Sur Moon effect by Buckethead, which is something like... So you can see how you can sort of time delay to your actual tempo of the notes that you're picking to give it a little bit more punch for the overlap, where it decays in between the notes and you almost don't notice it, but you do still kind of notice it. Versus reverb, where everything is sort of just reverberating constantly. So, and also, like I said, you don't necessarily have to time delay to the notes that you're picking. A lot of people don't, but me personally, I usually use reverb almost all the time, unless I'm trying to play something where there is some aspect of timing a delay to the tempo. Not that I would play like and just get that echo going, but even in odd sort of time, you could throw in like a triplet phrase and you can still hear how the delay would be following your actual rhythm. So it's more of a rhythmic tool than reverb, which is just a space filler without a rhythmic aspect. So I hope you guys found this video interesting about what is the difference between reverb and delay. Reverb is basically an immediate echo reverberation that's filling out the sound space that you're playing in, whereas delay is, as the name implies, a delayed echo that is reverberating and eventually filling out the sound space. Typically, you can set, there's different styles of delay, same as different styles of reverb, and you can set them all to your own preferences, but this is the main fundamental difference between the two. If you like this video, don't forget to share it and subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will see you guys next time.